wrong scene. Boom. There we go. Let's go. Yeah, that works. So, I've never actually done a tier list thingy before. And I figure this would be a fun way to sort of pad the stream until Ghoulguts is available, where I rank the various Resident Evil games. Yeah, that could be fun. Let's see here, though. We need some music. Hold on. Resident Evil 4. Yeah, this works. I'm going to throw this on loop. So this tier list already existed, but I also decided to include the DLC/side chapters that have been released in various different Resident Evil games. This tier list, I don't know who made it, but Zoe found it and he shared it in Rent's Discord. And I modified it. Alright. So, first things first. The original Resident Evil. And I guess this is not including the director's cut, like, re-releases, except for Deadly Silence for some reason. So it's like, you know, yeah, whatever. Original Resident Evil. I'm actually gonna give that an A. I really like the original Resident Evil quite a lot. I think the game mostly holds up. It has hilariously bad voice acting, and the Director's Cut DualShock edition of the game has a wonderfully stupid soundtrack that kind of enhances the game. I love the setting, I love the weird, off-putting cinematography and lighting. Almost kind of feels Giallo-esque. It's a great first entry. Next up, of course, is Resident Evil 2, which is getting an S. And yes, I have a goat. Should be pretty evident, though, what it is, if you know me in this channel. Resident Evil 2 is basically everything that Resident Evil 1 was, but, like, amplified and better. It is, from my opinion, hands down, the best old-school Resident Evil game. If it had the remake, the treatment that RE1 Remake got, like it was remade shortly after RE1 Remake, I think it would possibly be my favorite. Hold on. In case Ghoulguts shops in. Yeah, it's fantastic. The extra content is fantastic. Although a little tilting at times, but yeah, it's still pretty great. I think it's definitively the best of the classic trilogy of Resident Evil games, or at least, you know, yeah, best of the PS1 stuff. Next up is Resident Evil 3, and controversial opinion, maybe. I think it's alright. Despite having arguably my favorite Resident Evil character, Jill Valentine, I don't know, just something about it doesn't quite click with me because of the fact that I guess it's more action-focused, but it's still kind of restrictive of horror elements. I like the concept of Nemesis, and I think he's mostly executed well, but I don't know, sometimes he can be a little annoying, and the game can feel a little bullshitty and or cheap at times. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. It's good! Like, C tier for me is, it's not like super mid. I still like most, if not all, the stuff in C tier. I just have issues with it, you know? Code Veronica! Also C tier. I used to really, really, really love Code Veronica as a kid. Because Chris Redfield's my second favorite Resident Evil character, so seeing him come back was cool. Him partnering up with Claire was cool. Like the winter shit. But just a lot of aspects, and it's also suitably goofy. But, this is also kind of a problem with Resident Evil 3. It kind of loses a bit of the Metroidvania-esque level design that Resident Evil 1 and 2 had, which is, for me, peak survival horror. And Code Veronica has the same issue, and kind of has a few moments that can result in soft locks if you're not super well aware, or certain things are kind of like permanently missable if you're not like following a guide or not well aware, which can be kind of a pain in the ass, like losing out on the Magnum, so that kind of stifles things. It's still good. It's still really good, but yeah, it's just not quite my cup of tea. Resident Evil Survivor. I fucking hated this game when I was a wee baby boy. I rented it once, even though everybody was like, this game is shit. I was like, yeah, but it's Resident Evil. I want to play it. I hated this fucking game. Replaying it, I don't think it's nearly as bad as its reputation makes it out to be. And as a connoisseur of bad voice acting, it's hilarious. Like the whole, let me see if I can bring up a clip of it. The bit where the bad guy's mom is talking. Yeah, here we go.
What?
Vincent?
This bit.
It's me, your mother.
My mother?
Vincent, please. Listen to your mother. I want you to leave Umbrella. I want you to stop performing those terrible crimes and just come back home.
That's comedic genius. I love it. I love it. I know it's not supposed to be funny, but it's just amazing. I love it. That said, objectively, the game plays like shit, so D tier. Survivor 2, I only played recently-ish. When did I play it? I played it 2002, so almost 2 years ago, because it was September 2002. That was the first time I played it. It's basically like a Code Veronica version of Resident Evil Survivor. Doesn't have the humor aspect that the original Survivor did, and it's a lot more frustrating and tedious and tilting than that, and it was kind of a absolute slog to get through, so F tier. Resident Evil Gaiden. I got this for Christmas one year from my grandmother or my aunt. I don't remember who. Because it was like Resident Evil on the Game Boy. That's gonna be cool. And I remember not liking it, like at all. And then I decided to play it on stream a couple years ago and see if that opinion still held up. Because, you know, I was a little softer in Resident Evil Survivor, and, you know, my opinions change over time, and, you know, that's how it goes. But no, it's an absolute piece of shit. You know, like let me add row below. Because we have a goat. There we go. Resident Evil Gaiden. Absolute. Oh, that's barely fucking visible. No! That's barely fucking visible. Fuck it. Yeah, there we go. Absolute fucking worst. Absolute fucking slog to play. I had to resort to using Game Genie and Action Replay codes to get through it. And, you know what? No shame. Maybe I'll replay it at some point, but I expect it to be just the absolute worst thing ever. Because it's a piece of shit. I hate it. It's the absolute worst. I fucking hate it. Next up is Resident Evil Remake. And it's the GOAT. It's one of my top 10 favorite games of all time, most likely. The list kind of fluctuates, but it's usually in there. I think it's the pinnacle of survival horror gameplay. It is this game, but amplified to such a goddamn insane degree. It has Chris and Jill. It has fun unlockables. Doesn't completely bring over everything from OG Resident Evil 1, like the Saturn content is lost. It has new costumes kind of based on films. Like, you got a Sarah Connor costume for Jill and a Brad Pitt from the Mexican costume for Chris, which is weird. But it has, the Code Veronica outfit and the RE3 outfit, which is cool. One dangerous zombie, invisible enemy, real survivor. I wish it kind of had a battle mode. The only thing that I wish it did was, like, make a proper Jill and Chris scenario, kind of like RE2 did. Like a scenario A, scenario B sort of thing. Because the scenario system, if RE2 PS1 was remade in the style of RE1 GameCube, and it kept the scenario system, like proper scenario A, scenario B thing, this would probably be my favorite, right? This hypothetical RE2 remake. But that doesn't exist, so we got Resident Evil 1 Remake. What's next? Oh, Resident Evil 0. Probably an uncontroversial opinion, but I think it's kind of mid. I used to hate it a lot more, because it's kind of tilting and tedious and a big pain in the ass. The idea of being able to drop weapons and items wherever is cool, but the lack of item boxes... it creates more trouble and more tedium than it's worth. The newer enemies were kind of weak sauce. I like Billy's tattoo. I like Rebecca Chambers, but like that's also another thing that's kind of a bit of a downgrade with RE1 Remake, is Rebecca's kind of kept the same between RE1 and RE1 Remake. But then we see RE0, and Rebecca's kind of like super tough, and it takes place the day before RE1. So it would have been nice if there was some consistency between RE1 and RE0, like you made her a bit tougher in that game. Yeah, Leachman sucks. It has neat ideas, but kind of janky-ish execution. Yeah, it could be better. Resident Evil Dead Aim! I only played this semi-recently. It's, for those who are unaware of it, it's kind of like Survivor and Survivor 2. It's like a light gun sort of game. Objectively, mechanically, it's not great. But it's so goddamn funny and so goddamn batshit insane. Like, it is insane. Like, hold on, let me bring it up. It's got a fucking booba tyrant, my guys. Like, look at this shit. And what you don't see here is, like, it's got heals, which is ridiculous. Like, this dude injects himself with a new virus, and he somehow mutates into this. And it's insane, and it's wonderful, and I love it, and it's stupid. It's not a very good game, but it's fun and charming and dumb and stupid, and I love it. Next up we have Outbreak and Outbreak File 2. For me, they're effectively the same game. I'm going to throw these up into C tier. They had a lot of potential, and I like them, and I still 100% want to get a group of people and go through all 10 scenarios, or however many there are, of Outbreak File 1 and File 2. But ultimately, they are kind of mechanically frustrating in a lot of elements, due to some of the weird balancing decisions, like characters being only able to hold 4 items. I think 6 would have been better. Granted, I think Yoko can carry 8, but that's still. And it's a little confusing and tedious to get through. But it's a neat idea, neat execution, and something that I really want to see in the franchise again. Like, bring it back. Bring it back. 100%. I love it. I would love to see it. Overall, pretty solid, though. Next up is Resident Evil Deadly Silence. It is just Resident Evil 1, but on the DS. It's fine. It's got stupid DS gimmicks, like a CPR minigame where you, like, blow into your DS microphone, a knife battle minigame with its stylus, and it's partially uncut. But I guess, you know, I'll give it a B, because it's just Resident Evil 1, but on a handheld with dual screens, and it's not completely uncut. Like, I think the only version of RE1 that's been completely uncut is the US PC release, outside of Japan, I mean. And, like, considering this is, like, 10 years after RE1 came out, or close to 10 years, it's a bit silly that this wasn't uncut. It's also weird that we never got Resident Evil 2 on the DS, or 3DS, whatever, doesn't matter, it's fine. Next up is OG RE4. That's going up in the S tier. OG RE4, uncontroversially, I think, not hot take, is like one of the best games ever made. It's still kind of spooky. It's like not super spooky, but it's kind of spooky. Try to do something fresh and unique with the franchise without, like, worrying too much about the long, complicated backstory and shit like that. Mechanically, it's phenomenal. Very few, if any, nitpicks or gripes with it, honestly. Yeah, no, it's just a fucking banger of a goddamn game, and it's a meaty fucking goddamn game. I guess the only main nitpick that I can think of is that, and you'd think they'd add it in, like, some of the re-releases it got. There's no chapter select, which kind of makes, wanting to replay specific moments or, like, collect certain treasures and all that a bit of a pain in the ass. But, you know, whatever. It is what it is. Next up is the first of my additions, which is the original Separate Ways. It's fine. Give it a B. It's just RE4, but from Ada's point of view, superfluous, but it's solid enough. I remember there's some moments that are kind of aggravating, but, you know, it's pretty solid. It's, you know, it appeals to the Ada fans and all that fun stuff. So yeah, you know, it's solid. It's all right. Next up, Resident Evil 5. Maybe controversial opinion, because this seems to be a love it or hate it sort of game, and I kind of fall in the love it camp. It's not quite an A, mostly because of Chapter 2-2. I think that's the one where you have to fight El Gigante, which is, like, the worst fucking thing in that game. From a gameplay standpoint, it is just an absolute fucking slog to get through. And also, Sheba's AI, if you're playing this in single player, is kind of dog shit, to put it bluntly. But playing this in co-op is a hell of a lot of fun. It still looks and runs remarkably well. It's just a blast. It's just RE4, but a lot dumber and shorter, and in co-op. And it's fun. It's a blast. Next up, we got the RE5 DLC. We got Lost in Nightmares and Desperate Escape. Lost in Nightmares was their attempt at kind of bridging the gap and showing, like, doing a prequel to RE5. And it kind of attempts to emulate some more horror-y type stuff. since RE5 is... It has moments of horror, but it's not too horror-y. It's much more action-y. RE4 is a hell of a lot more horror than 5. I will give Lost in Nightmares... Yeah, fuck it. We'll give it a B. It's fun. It's got Jill, playable Jill. It's got a fun boss fight against Wesker. It tries to homage the original Resident Evil. It's a little spooky. Some aspects can be a little tilting, but yeah, it's pretty solid. Desperate Escape, though. It's pretty frustrating. So as of right now, like, just memory. Based on my memory, I'd probably give it a D. Maybe C. Like, it's closer to a C than an F, right? Same thing with Survivor. Survivor's kind of close to a C. It's dumb. Action schlock, kind of showing what Jill was doing towards the tail end of RE5. But it's a little tilting and frustrating at various points throughout the campaign. So that kind of drops it down a bit. Yeah, I think that's really all I have to say about Desperate Escape. Mercenaries 3D! I have barely played it, so I don't really have too much of an opinion on it. It seemed fine. I just wish this got ported to, like, a real console. Because I kind of... We'll get into it later when we get into Resistance and Reverse and whatnot, but, like, outside of Outbreak, I think that if Capcom wants to capitalize on, like, a multiplayer Resident Evil, this is what you should do. Make a full-fledged Mercenaries game. Especially with, like, RE Engine, right? So many things that you could draw from. Zombies, Ganados, Molded, the shit in Village. Do a lot of crazy shit. Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. This is a Wii rail shooter, and I remember not liking it all that much. I remember being really excited for it when it was coming out, even though, like, I wasn't too keen on rail shooters or whatever. But I remember it being really, really overly difficult and frustrating. And I was pretty bummed out that all of the RE3 environments were just taken from Outbreak File 1 and 2. Like, they weren't even areas from RE3. They were just taking aspects from Outbreak File 1 and 2 to save time, so it felt cheaper because of it. The exclusive content was cool. I would have loved to see that stuff expanded. Like, Umbrella Chronicles is a section where you play as Ada during the tail end of Resident Evil 2. And I would have loved to see that as DLC for Resident Evil 2 Remake. Or an unlockable mode. But we never got it. So that's kind of a bummer. Dark Side Chronicles, I had it, but I actually never played it. I don't have it anymore. Not until I get a PS3 anyway. Get a new PS3, I mean. I know it's kind of like a rail shooter of RE2 and RE Code Veronica. And it has some exclusive content, including Operation Javier, which ties into Resident Evil 4. And I remember there was a rumor that Operation Javier DLC would be available for Resident Evil 4 Remake. But that hasn't come to fruition yet. Maybe it was canceled, maybe it was never going to be a thing. I don't know. But I would love to see, like, also here's another thing too, like, even if I don't like a game, like these, or more so Survivor and Umbrella, and then Gun Survivor 2 and Gaiden, I would still love to see them remastered and brought into modern hardware, and this includes this, because, you know, game preservation is kind of my thing, right? One of these days I'll possibly emulate it, and also possibly emulate that. Another thing to note about me is my opinion changes wildly, so some of this ranking could change and fluctuate at some point, especially if I ever get around to, like, diving more into the barely played, haven't played, right? So one of these days I would like to emulate that, and then maybe it'll go up to C or B, and then I would love to emulate that. I remember Greedy saying that she hated Darkside Chronicles, I'm pretty sure. Resident Evil Revelations. I think I played it for the first time last year? Or the year before that? Nah, 2002. And I remember a lot of people were proclaiming that this was sort of the return to form for Resident Evil in terms of like horror. And people called it pretty good. Possibly hot take. But this is one of the worst Resident Evil games I've played. It was really frustrating and stupid and annoying, and I hated it. It was an absolute slog to get through. I'd like to replay it at some point to mop it up more, because even bad Resident Evil games I can still kind of find enjoyment from. Gaiden is probably the one I'm least likely to replay, but maybe one day I'll replay it. But Rev 1 was... Ugh. I really hated Rev 1. I'm sorry, everybody. Resident Evil 6. Controversial opinion, it's pretty bad. It is only here in D tier because it's kind of fun in co-op, and Mercenaries No Mercy is a lot of fun. Mechanically, I think the game is really, really sloppy, and I think the game is suffering from an identity crisis. Too many cooks in the kitchen, too many... trying to appeal to too many people at once, right? It's just, each campaign is so tonally and wildly different, and the story is this big convoluted mess. And it's just the execution is really sloppy and buggy and poor and just really fucking rough around the edges. So, yeah, the only thing keeping it out of F tier is, again, Mercenaries No Mercy, which is just Mercenaries on crack. And the fact that it can be fun to go through with co-op, right? Rev 2, I've barely played it. First impressions are... I played a couple hours of it a few years ago, but I never got around to playing more than that. First impressions of that, though, was it's better than Rev 1, but I still wasn't really having any fun with it. I want to get through it at some point. Hypothetically, just based off of first impressions, it would probably go in D tier, maybe C tier. I don't know. But I barely played it. I don't have enough of an opinion on it. Operation Raccoon City, I've also barely played. I remember it being pretty terrible, though. So it would probably be an F or D tier if I played more of it. One of these days, I would like to play it on stream, so I can solidify that opinion, but it is what it is, right? It is what it is. I've barely played it. And then Umbrella Corps, I hear it's absolutely terrible, but never played it, so I don't really have an opinion on it. Hold on, I got a text message. This is from Mikey Moo. Oh, it is from Mikey Moo. Hold on.
My boy.
Oh my god, it is Mikey Moo.
What's going on, my dude?
Well, I'm just doing my shit opinion on the Resident Evil franchise. Here, I'll
I
stream
just caught the tail end of that, yeah.
Well, I'm still not done with it. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 entries to get through. And then we'll do Ascension. But yeah, alright, so I guess there's a catch-up for you. Resident Evil 1 Remake is the GOAT. Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4
yes,
are S tier. Resident Evil 1, 96 is A tier. Dead Aim, Deadly Silence, OG Separate Ways, Resident Evil 5, and Lost in Nightmares are B tier. Dead Aim is this high because it's really, 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 really stupid and funny.
Weird, yeah.
Alright. Resident Evil 3, Code Veronica, 0, Outbreak, and Outbreak 2 are all C tier for me. Greedy, C tier is not terrible, alright? C tier is just, it's not it doesn't really super click for me. It's fine. It's inoffensive. It's just not. It's not B tier. It's not quite.
Code
Veronica's
is definitely B tier.
It just frustrates me
You're
a little much.
tripping, sir.
It frustrates me a bit. All right.
Why though? Tell me.
Because part of the reason why 3 and CV are lower than B tier is, for me, the quintessential survival horror Resident Evil is more Metroidvania-esque with its level design, which is what 1 and 2 and Remake are, and these two lack that. The backtracking feels more like backtracking.
Yeah. I will say the backtracking in Code V was crazy, but
yeah, it's not offensively bad. I used to love Code V, like way back in the day, right?
Yeah.
It's just, for me now, after replaying it, I'm much more muted on it. All right? C tier is not bad.
Are you sure that that's not just like the curse of time and just being jaded?
I'm pretty sure, because I replayed Code Veronica a couple times recently. Part of my bitterness was
I haven't, so I can't say really.
Part of my bitterness, this was off stream. This is years ago. I think it was before I was even streaming. Was I realized that I had forgotten to put a fire extinguisher from the metal safety deposit box back in the item box, and then 3 hours later, when I'm in Antarctica, Chris needs it to get the magnet, and this is on the other island. I was like, "Fuck this game." All right, and there is an instance where you hypothetically can get soft locked. Again, it's just not quite my bag.
That too, yeah.
It's solid. It's just not quite my bag. Like, even Zero has a bit of that Metroidvania-esque stuff, but it's janky. All right, these are solid. Yeah, sure. These are all good. All right. Survivor is only as high as it is because it's funny. All right.
It is very
funny.
Sure, yeah.
And it's not as bad as I remember. Desperate Escape is the worst DLC for Resident Evil 5. It's really frustrating and tilting. Umbrella Chronicles, it's a hot minute. Well, one day we will. Umbrella Chronicles, it's been a hot minute since I played it, but it was really frustrating and also disappointing because all of the RE3 areas were were just taken from Outbreak. So it's not even RE3 content, it's just Outbreak content they repurposed for RE3.
Yeah.
Umbrella Chronicles is like a rail shooter
is that the okay? Yeah,
rail shooter on the Wii that retells the stories of 0, 1, and 3, and then has its own exclusive chapter about the fall of Umbrella. But it's also needlessly frustrating.
Which one is the like squad shooter one?
That is Operation Raccoon City, and we'll get there. Resident Evil 6, I mean, you played it. It's pretty bad. And the only thing keeping it out of the only thing keeping it in D tier is the fact that it's fun in co-op, and Mercenaries No Mercy is fun. It's janky as fuck, but Mercenaries No Mercy is a lot of fun. All right, so you played Mercenaries, right?
I'll trust you. Only in 4.
Okay, so starting in Resident Evil 5, Mercenaries is co-op now, right?
Okay.
And you have to kill upwards of 150 enemies. So they have a cap of enemy kills, not just time kills, right? And they'll spawn like 9 or 10 enemies on the map at once. And, they're about standard durability. Mercenaries No Mercy.
Crazy. That sounds.
Mercenaries No Mercy cranks up the amount of enemies to like 300 to 400 that you have to kill before it ends, and they increase it to like 20 to 30 enemies on the map at once. They take less damage to compensate, but you're still like being overwhelmed by just this onslaught. And RE5 has No Mercy, but No Mercy is single player only in 5, whereas No Mercy in 6 is co-op.
Okay.
And that's neat.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a
fun.
dog shit game, but co-op and No Mercy, it's fine. Gun Survivor 2, I played that 2 years ago. It's a piece of shit. It's just this, but in Code Veronica. It's this, but Code Veronica, and the pretense is Do you remember in Code Veronica when Claire gets knocked out?
Yeah.
This is a dream sequence that she has.
Steve time. Are you fucking kidding me?
No.
Oh, wait.
And her dream sequence is a rail shooter of
What?
the events of Code Veronica. But also Nemesis is there for some
Wait.
reason.
Hold
And it's
on,
really
hold on,
frustrating
hold on,
and
hold on.
stupid.
Hold up. She gets knocked out in the middle of the game,
Yes.
and you're saying that she has like a fever dream about like the events of the game. So
Yes.
like the whole game,
Yes.
things that she hasn't experienced yet.
Yes.
Claire is psychic.
Yeah.
Confirmed. Fuck
And also
yeah.
Nemesis
Okay.
is there
Okay,
for
dude.
some reason. It's
Okay, dude.
terrible. It's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I have not. I did. I haven't played it. I did call you out though, Grady, because I said that you hated it apparently, but I have never played it. Resident Evil Revelations. I said this is probably a controversial opinion, but I think it's rank dog shit. It was just
Wow.
really not fun and stupid. And I hated it.
I have heard this.
A lot of people love it, and it has a raid mode that apparently is really good. But a single player mode, I thought it was stupid and dumb and pointless and stupid and dumb. And then the absolute worst is Gaiden, which should
Are
be
you
the most
telling me that you didn't
uncontroversial
like
opinion.
Master? Dude, you didn't like the Master of what was it, like Master of Knifing or Knives or whatever?
I had to use an action replay to get through the game. I just gave myself infinite ammo.
Dude, I had that game like back
So did
when I
I.
was like young and poor. I played the fuck out of that game.
I streamed it a couple
It's-
years ago, and it's
a-
dog shit.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I barely played Mercs 3D, and then Rev 2, and then Operation Raccoon City, and then I haven't played Darkside Chronicles, and I haven't played Umbrella Corps, which is
Rev.
the other dog shit Resident Evil multiplayer game.
I feel like I've seen clips of that one, and low key,
I want
I
to play
kind
it.
of want to play that.
I want to play it.
Yeah.
I want to play it. I bought it for
We
a lot of
might
people.
have to do that.
We have to do it. We're gonna have to do
Okay.
We're gonna have to do these two, Mikey.
I'm
Because
down.
we're
Yeah,
we're
let's
shit.
do it.
Anyways, Resident Evil 7. I think this is an uncontroversial opinion, but it's going in the A tier. All right.
I still
This is-
haven't played it. But
It's so
That feels
good.
right.
It kind of shits the bed a little bit at the end that prevents it from
Oh, I've
greatness.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it has so much of Resident Evil's DNA in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just fresh and unique and interesting, and I fucking dig the ever-loving hell out of it. It's a really solid horror game that asks the question, hey, what if Outlast allowed you to have a gun?
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
answer is, it would be much better. It would be so much better.
Sure.
Resident Evil DLC, not a hero. It's inoffensive. It gets like a C tier. It's just postscript Resident Evil.
PTSD,
It's one of the many
Yeah.
episodes of Chris having PTSD. Yes, and
Yeah,
it's free
yeah.
DLC where you play as Chris post RE7, cleaning shit up. It's fine. It's whatever. Endozoe gets a B tier because at least it's like mechanically interesting, and you're playing as this like southern redneck who like heals health by like eating crawdads and shit, and a lot of the combat is like melee focused. You're like beating up gators and beating up BOWs.
Yo.
It's like, this shit is dumb with a capital D.
Oh shit. Okay.
But
cool.
yeah,
Cool.
it's pretty.
I'll have
It's
to
pretty
check
dumb.
that out too then.
RE2 remake gets an A tier.
You love it. for sure.
I
So
think
did I,
it's
though.
a big step down from RE2, but mostly because of the lack of scenarios, like proper scenarios, and the fact that like the
Yeah.
bosses are repeated between both characters.
Yeah.
That said, even though RE2 is like for me objectively the better game, RE2 remake is more fun to replay. So I replay it a lot more.
Yeah.
It's solid. It's really good. RE3 remake, possibly a controversial opinion, gets a C tier. It's fine.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
don't.
That's where
I-
I would put that too.
I wasn't super crazy about Nemesis in the first place,
Yeah,
And
I get that. That's
for
around
me,
the same thing for
the
you then.
game is super fine, except for the final two Nemesis fights where the game just is like really, really, really shit. And the camera's like way too close, and it's just frustrating and tilting and stupid and dumb and stupid and dumb. Next up would be Resistance, which is that Resident Evil multiplayer game that came
Yeah.
bundled with 3.
I've
Also,
seen clips.
controversial opinion. It gets a C tier from me. It was way better than it had any fucking right to be. Its main problem is that Capcom abandoned it way fucking too quickly, and they gave up on balancing way too fucking quickly. Like, initially you had to like unlock masterminds and unlock abilities and perks and shit like that, right?
Okay.
And then like a month or two after the game came out, they just said, fuck it, and they threw up their hands and released a patch that made everything available for unlock right at the start. So it was like, now people can easily be scrubs and shit like that. Or Smurf accounts or whatever. And Nikolai was just flat out broken as a mastermind. And matchmaking, as Lee points out, was completely broken. Where they'll match like low level players against high level players, and it's like this is dog shit. With a lot more love and care and like a better plan, it could have been a lot better.
Do people still play that?
Sweaty people do. I want to play it again because I like it, and I want to relive those days at least once. And I know Greedy's never played it, and I've never played it with Lee. And you can do private matches, dude. You can do 5-player private matches. One friend is a mastermind, 4 people as survivors. I want to do that. That could be fun.
I might be sweaty enough to join you in that.
All right, good. My spiciest opinion to date, maybe, or up to this point, Resident Evil Village gets a C tier.
Oh, you fucking hated that game, yeah.
It started
lower.
It starts really, really, really good, and it has promise. It just progressively gets worse and worse until it devolves into RE6.
I literally like watched you play like 70% of that game like twice, and all I recall is, of course, mommy booty.
Yeah,
you know?
that's all anybody remembers. It's a first
fucking brain rot is real.
It's a step down from 7. It's a first-person four-man's RE4, and it has one of, if not the worst section of a modern Resident Evil game, which is Chris on Duty Modern Werewolf. The Chris Redfield
he's a
section
fucking werewolf.
is the worst. Oh no, Chris is not a werewolf. You just have to fight. Okay. You just have to fight a bunch of stupid werewolves. And it's dumb. And then, for me, this is not spicy. At least for I know Lean and probably Greedy agree. I added Shadows of Rose to this, which is the Resident Evil Village DLC.
I was there for that.
This is getting an F tier. This is dog shit. This is absolute fucking trash. This is unfun garbage. That is just, hey, what if we did fucking everything we did in Village, but again, and act as if it was new, and make it frustrating and stupid? Like, if you played Resident Evil Village, this has the same plot twists as this, even though this is a sequel to this.
I feel like that DLC was like perhaps the most that I've seen you suffer. Like on stream, you were so mad.
I'll send you my Valentines. I'll send you my Valentines.
Oh man!
All right. Next up is Resident Evil Reverse, which from what I hear is terrible. Inko.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
I haven't played it yet, so I want to. I've been wanting to. It's just I can't find enough suckers to play it with me. So it's going here. Now, my next spicy opinion is Resident Evil 4 VR, which is just this game, but for Oculus in VR. Sure. And I'm never going to play it. Ever. And my reasoning, it's stupid, probably to a lot of people, but I have my standards, all right? Resident Evil VR, it takes a lot of the same assets, including voice work, level design, animations, character models, environments, all that stuff from the original Resident Evil 4, right? So effectively, they're porting... Oh, it's going pretty good, Inko. Effectively, they're porting RE4 to VR, right? But then they decided to take the step further and censor aspects of OG RE4 that they felt didn't age appropriately. And that's where I draw the line. Well, like, you remember how Luis is a bit of a sex pervert?
Okay, yeah.
And he talks about Ashley's tits and calls them ballistics?
Sure.
Yeah, they cut that line of dialogue. They cut the line of dialogue with Leon flirting with Hunnigan.
Isn't she a kid?
She's 18. Everybody thinks that she's like... No, she's actually 20. She's 20, actually. Everybody thinks she's like 14, 15 years old because she looks
I stand
it
down
and she
because
acts
I
it.
definitely did. Exactly, dude.
In reality, she's a fucking college
gross.
student. So it's like, she's of age. For me, my big thing is like when you're remastering something or if you're reusing everything from a previous thing, if something hasn't aged well, slap a warning disclaimer on it. When you boot the game, kind of like how certain films do. Because
that's like a respectful way to do that, actually.
Because when you start to be like, this hasn't aged well, so we're going to remove it, this is a never-ending slide because like what currently is fine today... What's currently fine today could be unacceptable 20 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And, like, this is, like, let's say a bunch of assholes, extreme bigots get into power, right? They could be just like, well, we're going to remove any LGBT stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because this is offensive to us. And it's like, no, it's not offensive. It's offensive to you, but it's fine. For me, I don't like censorship in remasters or ports. I think it's dumb and stupid. Is it a deal breaker? No, it's not. But just my general stance is, like, Gone with the Wind as a movie has not aged particularly well, especially in regards to like relationships between whites and blacks and how slaves were.
Sure.
But the minute you start going back and cutting out all the stuff that hasn't aged well, it's like, it feels really skeezy. It feels like that crusade from years ago where they wanted to... There was that crusade years ago where they wanted to take 1950s and 60s movies and, like, digitally remove cigarettes. And it's like, fuck that. That's dumb.
Yeah.
That's dumb. Or Steven Spielberg going back and digitally removing guns in E.T. and replacing them with walkie-talkies. Fuck that.
Oh, word?
Fuck that. This is dumb. Leave it as is. And like, like I like the trend that like some games and some movies have done, where they stick a disclaimer at the start. And it's like, hey, this product is a thing from its era. Some aspects have aged poorly. We don't agree with that, but we think it's important to like preserve that. Stick that in there, and we're fine. Also, I don't want to spend $400 fucking in a VR headset just to play Resident Evil 4 again. That's the other reason. Yeah,
I mean...
but yeah, it's my big stance is just...
Anybody get to have to.
I don't like the censorship. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, when you're remaking a game, you can remove whatever the fuck you want. So I don't give a shit about, like, a lot of people like, you can't look up Ashley's skirt in Resident Evil 4 Remake. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck, because it's a remake. It's a fucking remake. Who cares? They're able to do whatever the fuck they want. It's not a remaster. It's not a port. They're not editing the older work. Who gives a shit? Anyways, the next spicy opinion is, it gets a B. It's not great. It's a huge fucking step down from OG RE4.
I'm sure.
It's fine. It's fine.
That didn't excite me at all. I still haven't played it, and I probably won't.
It didn't need to be remade, and it has a lot of...
That was my thought, yeah.
It has a lot of design decisions that I am not happy with, and I think it's artificially more difficult, and it has a bunch of stupid modern AAA shit like forced walks. Knife having weapon degradation is really dumb. Body armor having weapon degradation is really dumb.
Yeah.
They made a big deal about crouch and stealth mechanics, and it's like they're barely used and barely needed, and just they're not necessary. I would have preferred a dedicated evade button as opposed to a context-sensitive evade button. So evading kind of sucks in that game.
Yeah.
And then RE4 Remake Separate Ways.
Fuck is that?
It's the Ada campaign from
Ada DLC.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fine, but you know, it's just this, but a little more frustrating and tedious and not quite as good. It's fine. Oh yeah, Ashley is also a lot more annoying in RE4 Remake because you can't tell her to hide in a bin anymore. Instead, you can tell her to stay close
so she
or stay
probably
far
already
away.
died.
Yeah, she dies a lot more frequently, and she's a little more snippety at you for trying to boss her around, and then at the same time, they try to give her this arc where she's like, we're gonna make her more tough, and she's like, maybe I could be like a Secret Service agent too. And it's like, come on, guys. Like, for me personally, as like thinking about this objectively, if you wanted to make Ashley a stronger character, give her a gun. Like, have Leon give her a gun, and she could basically be Ellie from The Last of Us and be like, yo, like, take pot shots and shit.
Even if she didn't have a gun, like, show her, like, using her brain and shit, you know? Show her, like... Yeah, like, even if she didn't have any effective action in the story, like, if she talked more and said anything that was
anything
like,
of worth,
save me, you know.
Instead
cool.
it's just a little silly. It's a little dumb. Yeah. Anyways, this is my list. Feel free to send hate mail at me or whatever. Download image. Why not? I know Greedy's already gonna send hate mail at me because of Code Veronica's placement, but like I don't fucking care. I made my peace. I think it's fine. It's just not quite there. And then Resident Evil 1 Remake is the GOAT.